We're along the Detroit riverfront for this week's One Detroit. Coming up, we'll take you to a groundbreaking for a new campus to help the homeless. Plus, the Detroit School Superintendent shares his thoughts on the end of the year. Also, Stephen and Nolan debate the ending of term limits in the state legislature and the woman behind some of the most iconic pictures of the Detroit Tigers. I'm Christy McDonald. Join me. One Detroit is coming up.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, Craft-Made in Maryland cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV. The Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, and by
Business Leaders for Michigan has 5 priorities to make Michigan a top 10 state. Achieve a balanced budget, cut long-term debt, fix our roads, improve all levels of education, further economic growth, plan for a stronger Michigan. How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
also brought to you by Ally and viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi there and welcome to One Detroit. I'm Christy McDonald. We are along the Detroit riverfront for this week's show. Summer is finally here. We've got the good weather. The kids are out of school. They're going to have river days here this weekend. I think they're even going to try to break a world record with the number of food trucks here. It's going to be a great weekend to be down in the city of Detroit. And we have a great show coming up for you. Well, the kids might be free for this summer, but the work is far from over for Detroit School Superintendent Nikolai Vitti. He talks with me about how the year went and the challenges ahead with testing and fixing facilities. Also coming up, they're still working on the budget in Lansing, and at the same time, there's some serious talk about ending term limits. Will it really happen? Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson debate that. And a really cool look at a Free Press documentary on the woman behind some of the most iconic pictures of the Detroit Tigers. That is all coming up on the show. But we're starting off with my conversation with DPSCD Superintendent Nikolai Vitti. He talked about how the kids did this year in class and also about some of the programs they worked with teachers on, but really talked about the money it's going to take to fix the facilities and get some of the school buildings in better condition.
Literacy proficiency is up, so more students are at grade level in reading. More students are at grade level on math. We've reduced our chronic absenteeism by about 7 percentage points. We started with 275 vacancies 2 years ago. We're down to 120. We've hired over 70 music and art teachers. So I think in a lot of those areas we're starting to see improvement. We have to wait till the state results are released based on MSTEP. But all of our data is indicating that we're going to have a year of improvement after implementing a lot of that second full year of reform.
Talk a little bit about chronic absenteeism and the problem that it is with the district, which is a much higher average than it is in the state, and some of the different ways that you've been combating that.
Well, this year we funded an attendance agent at every school. So this individual, we created clear dashboards to know what students are on the verge of being chronically absent. And this attendance agent is empowered to do home visits. So they go directly to the home, ask questions about why the child is missing school. We'll even take students back to school with them. And so we've seen some schools improve their attendance by 30 percentage points because of this attendance agent. And then with the data tracking system, we're just better to know who's absent and who's not absent. In addition to that, we've funded a dean of discipline in every school. So this dean is working with students that are often showing the greatest behavioral issues. So we're creating more one-on-one relationships between the student and his dean and the parents.
Not as many expulsions or suspensions.
And that's right. And that's the other thing that's contributing to improving attendance is a reduction in out-of-school suspensions, where we still have consequences for behavior, but more in-school suspension rather than out-of-school suspension. So that's helping our attendance as well.
A couple things that people are really looking at is the facilities. Obviously, you've got poor conditions at a significant percentage of buildings. How many would you say?
So we have 100 school buildings, and the quality of those buildings vary. Some were built over the last 10 years. Some are 100 years old.
Right.
So we did a facility review so we could have a third-party analysis of what the problem was. That third-party analysis indicated that right now we're looking at $500 million that would be needed to bring all those schools to 2020 educational facility standards, and that increases to $1.4 billion with deferred maintenance over the next 4 years. So we're starting to engage the business community. DTE has stepped forward to say they want to be a part of that solution. GM, Quicken are stepping forward. So the next step for us is to engage the larger community by feeder pattern so the community knows what the challenges are, and we can have real conversations about, in some areas, downsizing, in some areas, replacing 3 schools maybe with a brand new school. So that number will be revised, and then from that point, we have to have our debt secured beyond what it's able to be secured at this point, and possibly looking at a bond. But this would be a way to address the needs over the long term, no longer looking at this as a quick fix type of solution, and instead to create a holistic solution to a set of schools that children deserve.
You're talking engaging the business community and being able to help out there too. What about legislators in terms of maybe changing the formula of how you're able to get funds to deal with your facilities?
Yeah, it's a great point. On the one hand, the debt that was restructured isn't even addressing the solution in any way, because our budget doesn't generate any dollars specifically for facilities. The greatest root cause of this is the fact that other school districts generate more wealth or revenue because of property taxes. And so, for instance, Farmington, Southfield, and Grosse Pointe generate $130 million more per year than Detroit does. So they use those funds for higher teacher salaries and better facilities. So if we're ever going to get a point to creating equity across the state, we have to deal with the inequity that is occurring because of local property taxes.
Turning now to a big groundbreaking in the city of Detroit to help the homeless. From shelter to job training to substance abuse counseling to home ownership, it's really an ambitious plan to help many people in need. Will Glover has our story.
In the McDougal Hunt neighborhood on Detroit's east side, the Neighborhood Service Organization broke ground on the Clay Center, a campus to end homelessness.
What this campus is intended to do is help uplift them and giving them the tools, life skills, and support that they need so that they can pull themselves out of the situation.
The Clay Center would be the first campus in Detroit to have a temporary shelter, provide homeless single adults with access to permanent housing, a medical residence, and fully integrated healthcare clinic.
In 2014, when the economy was better, we had 3,000 homeless. And I said, what are we doing if we're spending the same amount of money and the homeless count doesn't go down?
The Clay Center has been in the works since 2006, but the estimated $20 million plus facility hit a snag when the Illich-owned Olympia Development backed out of a verbal agreement to purchase the NSO's previous headquarters.
That definitely was a concern, but for me, I really couldn't get too much involved because that was a private decision that was made between 2 entities. My main focus, again, is making sure that we are serving the population that is most vulnerable, and that is our homeless population.
After another developer, MHT Housing Inc., stepped in to partner with the NSO, the project moved forward. Also joining the effort to provide affordable housing for 45 adults on the 3-acre campus was the Michigan State Housing Development Authority.
They pay 30% of whatever their income is, and the rental assistance will help to provide the rest. Their income can grow over time, and then the amount of rental assistance that will be paid would decrease along with that over time.
As the NSO continues to raise finances, Phase 1 of the project for single adult housing is expected to be finished by 2020, with the 56-bed temporary shelter and medical clinic to come at a later date.
No one chooses to just want to be homeless. We are providing all of the wraparound services to help them transition from homelessness to fully living and thriving in the community.
Lawmakers in Lansing are working on the budget right now. They're trying to figure out how much we can spend on our roads and education. And at the same time, there's some serious conversation about a possible ballot initiative in 2022 to repeal term limits. Well, Nolan and Stephen debate if it's really going to work.
Everybody complains about term limits. Nobody wants to do the hard work of actually addressing them. And Shirky says 2022, he wants to try to get the legislature to put a ballot proposal on that would get rid of term limits and stop protecting Michigan voters from democracy.
Yeah, so I think it's a great idea. Term limit has been a disaster, far worse than even those who were criticizing it back in the 90s said it would turn out. I think we couldn't even have imagined how bad it has been. But I don't know that Shirky's approach, and I give him credit for coming up with it and sticking his neck out there, I'm not sure that's going to work. The one thing that I think voters are more attached to in this state than anything else is the idea that people shouldn't be career politicians, and that when they do, that they end up being poorer servants, and so that we are protecting ourselves against that. And no matter what you say to them about how bad things have turned out, they still say, well, yeah, but they still shouldn't be able to be there their whole lives.
I don't know where public sentiment lies. I mean, there's been so much conversation about the damage term limits that has done. And Lee Chatfield, during that same discussion, said, gosh, we spend a lot of our time fixing the things that we passed last year because we really, basically, he was saying, we really don't know what we're doing. I mean, he's a leader after 4 years in the legislature. It has harmed
He's one of the
Michigan,
youngest members.
But I think if we could get something on the ballot, and all these people, all these business people and civic organizations who have been complaining about the damage term limits have done, put their money where their mouth is, a campaign might work. Or you could pair it with something.
Well, that was what we talked about a few years ago, was the idea of getting rid of term limits or limiting them,
or extending them,
or extending them, and also making the legislature part-time, which appeals to the same sentiments that people have, right? They're there all the time. What are they doing? I'm not sure that even that will convince
but
people.
you know, people went for term limits because there were the abuses. I mean, they saw people in there for 50 years and barely able to walk in and out of the chambers. I don't think it would bother people to see somebody in office 10, 12, even 14 years and give themselves the time, give their lawmakers the time to develop some expertise. Because right now, there is no expertise. And they don't care to learn because they're looking ahead to that next job. It hasn't ended career politicians in any shape.
Well, what it's done is it's made the lobbyists the career politicians,
and the
right?
staff.
The people who stay, no matter who is in office, working their issues, they are the experts. They know more than everybody else.
Right.
And we saw this example just last week, some lobbyists writing legislation essentially for a legislator because that legislator probably didn't know that enough to get it done themselves.
That's right.
It happens all the time now, and there was no way somebody like Jacob Eddy or Hilligans would have had to rely on a lobbyist that way.
And these lawmakers leave the legislature and right away go to work lobbying for people who had issues before them.
Yes.
The former Senate Majority Leader who just left.
Boy, we've already forgotten his name.
I've forgotten his name. He's lobbying. I mean, but you look at somebody like Ruth Johnson, who started in the state legislature, got term limited out, went to Secretary of State, got term limited out, now in the Michigan Senate, where she'll be term limited out sometime. It hasn't ended career politicians.
No, right. She's had a career just in different places.
Yeah, and that's happening over and over again.
Well, we'll
so
see.
it's a bad law, and we got to get rid of it.
If you get the support lined up, and you'd have to start that support, I think, in 20 at minimum, right? Start raising the money, start the kind of voter education campaigns that would tell people the damage that's actually been done. I mean, you've got great examples of lobbyists writing legislation, of things that can't get done because they don't know how to do them, or things that go wrong on the floor because the leader is brand new and doesn't really know the rules.
And this lack of willingness to work with each other either, because they've got their own ambitions at their heart. You know.
And finally, the Detroit Free Press digital team put out a documentary about one of their photographers, Mary Schrader. She was the one responsible for some of the most iconic photos of the Detroit Tigers from 1984. That was quite a year. You remember that picture of Gibby? She's the one that took that. Well, Mary retired this year, and she was inducted into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. Here's a look at her story, along with reporter Bill McGraw.
Remember this Gibson and Garvey picture? Oh. Trammell, going through sliding drills in spring training. The picture of Jack Morris with the balls. Those are all minor league balls, and I strung them together with fishing line. That's a cool picture.
Oh yeah, this is game action. I know the police couldn't prevent fans from running on the field. It was like this hazy October day that became hazier when they started burning police cars. They had the nucleus of a good team, and they started to gel in different ways. The excitement really started to build for sometime in the future, and it turned out it was '84. Not '85 and not '83 either, but '84 is when it all came together.
At the beginning of the '84 season, I had an idea of having a live tiger with up the middle.
The main story was about how strong the Tigers were, as they say in baseball, up the middle. Catcher, short, center fielder, and second baseman. So we had Parrish and Whitaker, Trammell, and Chet Lemon posing.
And Mr. Campbell, the general manager, okayed it. And sure enough, it was a little baby tiger cub, posed wonderfully. But then at the end of the session, Milt Wilcox came over and put his pitching hand into the tiger's mouth. I still have a job. The tiger didn't eat his hand.
I think it was the third or fourth game of the year, April 7th, '84.
All of a sudden, I realized that Jack Morris is starting the season really well. So I go over to the first base side, and sure enough, he does toss a wonderful gem, and it's the no-hitter of the season. And he jumps into Lance Parrish's arms. That set the stage for the rest of the season. It's like, okay guys, we are going to be this good. In the first 40 games, they won 35 games, lost 5. They were off to the races and never looked back.
Because of the way the Tigers started out that year, 35-5, wherever they went on the road in '84, they were a huge story. It was like the circus had come to town. It was also the year the Wave made its debut in North America, at least in a big way. There was so much energy every night at Tiger Stadium. Willie Hernandez was a tremendous reliever that year, and so the award they gave him was called the Fireman Award, because you came in and put out the fire. The reliever put out the fire, bases loaded, 1 out. So she took Willie Hernandez in uniform out of Tiger Stadium and went to one of the downtown firehouses and got his picture next to a fire engine with a fireman's hat on and an axe. Because it was so clear early that the Tigers were probably going to win the pennant that year, there was a lot of time to prepare and to get psyched up about the postseason. This is the official scorebook that every writer would have, had with them during the whole season that year. Game after game, 162 games and playoffs, and then this would be the last game back here somewhere. So this would be the game against San Diego when the Tigers won the World Series. Attendance, 51,901. That's a big crowd. That's a lot more people that can get into Comerica Park these days. So here's Gibson's home run in the 8th. You can keep score by following the player's progress around the bases. So there's a home run. There's a home run he hit in the 1st inning. And that's basically history in the making. That's Goose Gossage. He was the relief pitcher for the Padres, and he was a really big guy, and he was mean. He had a Fu Manchu mustache.
And Goose Gossage just stared down Kirk Gibson. And then when he hit the home run, by covering these guys day in and day out, I know how they're going to turn. I know where they're going to be, and I'm just there waiting. And they don't disappoint.
Mary's picture of Gibson being the wild man after his home run is really one of the most distinctive photos in the history of Detroit journalism. His uniform is torn from when he slid earlier, and it's grass stained, and it really captured all the exuberance that was going on at that moment.
The celebration lasted for hours. Champagne, joy, cigars. This is the ultimate prize. This is the picture of Alan Trammell in the tunnel leading from the field into the clubhouse. Raises his hand with a glass of champagne, and it's a tiger with "Bless you."
I remember walking on the roof of Tiger Stadium. There was an access door, and looking down at Michigan and Trumbull. You could see a police car upside down. I remember a motorcycle was on fire. It really looked like a battle had taken place. I knew then that it probably wasn't going to be a happy ending for what was going on outside the stadium as opposed to what had gone on inside the stadium. The first headline after the Tiger win was "Great," like Tony the Tiger used to say, but that became inappropriate later on, especially after someone died. I don't remember what the second headline was, but it was a little more in keeping with both the fact that there had been this great win, but there had also been some nastiness in the streets.
It was the second day after the World Series. I never asked for player autographs, but that one was special, and I brought 2 copies, one for him and one for me, and I had him sign it for me. Mary, what a great time. Kirk Gibson. And we had no idea of what the picture would come to represent. The best in sports. When you play together as a team, what you can accomplish.
Big thanks to Brian Kaufman from the Detroit Free Press, who edited and directed that documentary. That's going to do it for me along the Detroit riverfront. Thanks so much for joining us for One Detroit. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, Craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV, the Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, and by
Business Leaders for Michigan has 5 priorities to make Michigan a top 10 state. Achieve a balanced budget, cut long-term debt, fix our roads, improve all levels of education, further economic growth, plan for a stronger Michigan. How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
Also brought to you by Ally and viewers like you. Thank you.